My name is Laura, and this is Bren, and this is Myles. Myles is our second child. We have a 4-year-old daughter, Lucy, and Myles was born in May of 2016. Honestly, he's been such a happy kid from the beginning, really just very smiley all the time. And so when he started to get sick, that was probably the biggest indication that something wasn't right. It was a Sunday morning, and we went into the pediatrician, and he threw up green. And they thought that he had some sort of blocked intestine. And so they decided, as a precautionary measure, to send us right to UVA.
Once we got to UVA and they sort of went through the test around a potential intestinal issue and all those came back clear, then it really felt like 24 hours of being on a House episode. Where the best doctors, in the country, in the world, they even weren't quite sure what was going on. They just knew something was a little off.
They continued to do a number of tests, and then at some point decided to do an echocardiogram, and that's when they realized something was not right with his heart.
I first met Myles when the pediatricians were concerned that his heart wasn't working well. Myles looked like any other 5-month-old. Honestly looked like my 5-month-old at that same time. And he was sitting in Laura's lap and looked like anybody else. She was terrified, Dad was terrified. We did an ultrasound of his heart and we saw that his coronary arteries were very large, which really the only thing that could be is Kawasaki's disease. That illness had weakened his coronary arteries, and unfortunately for Myles, there was no blood flow past that clot in his left coronary artery. He had clear signs that he was having a heart attack.
I sort of went into a state of shock. I couldn't stand up. I was physically trembling. It was sort of this out-of-body experience. In those moments, I think you try to figure out, what is my role as a parent right now? I feel so helpless.
We sort of knew life one way, and then you start preparing for really the rest of your life could be completely different.
You don't even know how you're supposed to handle a situation like that.
Kawasaki's disease is an inflammatory illness. It's a disease primarily of children, and it really only happens in this kind of young school age. Despite knowing about this disease for over 30 or 40 years, we don't know the cause. It's very hard to diagnose. There's no one test that we can run that says yes or no, this is Kawasaki's disease, and so that limits us. Not many people have heard of Kawasaki's disease, but it's not terribly rare.
After UVA Medical figured out it was Kawasaki disease, they moved us into the PICU, and we were there for 7 days. And then once we made the transition to sort of the regular part of the hospital and the pediatrics, I really started thinking about the future at that point.
You feel like you've got a handle on life, and then all of a sudden you're in this situation and you don't even know what questions to ask. There are just moments like that you realize how much this is going to change life.
Seeing the ultrasound, seeing some of his lab work, this was going to be tricky. And trying not to worry them too much, but we're going to move him over to the ICU now. He needs a place where he can be monitored a little closer. We were certainly worried that his heart muscle was going to fail. Fortunately, Myles did very well, and whether it was all the medicines we threw at him or the good care from the ICU doctors, he weathered that storm and has done very well now, and I think we're kind of out of that window of this heart's going to fail and it's not going to work very well, and now into kind of, okay, how do we optimize his quality of life? How do we best make sure that he can run and swim and play with his friends and know that he's safe doing that?
His heart function is essentially normal now because of what his body has been able to do to repair and because of the medications that he's on that are working. Before all of this happened, I associated the American Heart Association with, I think, an older population. You, of course, know that there are people of all ages, including children, that deal with various heart issues, but it wasn't really on our radar. I think it really underscores the importance of research and support for organizations that are supporting people of all ages and all abilities before and after their diagnosis.
Donations to the American Heart Association, I think it can dramatically affect Myles. Organizations that can provide for, figuring out what's the best way to take this and to support the families throughout this as well. I mean, having a way for families to connect with other families, having a way for parents to get information are hugely important, not just the research stuff, but the other kind of support aspects of it.
You never know how it'll impact maybe your own family. And to have that research and awareness and the really important work, donating and supporting the American Heart Association benefits others immediately, but it might one day really impact you personally or your family or extended family, whatever the case might be.